welcome to our next update on Archmage Rises, the greatest role-playing game Nick and Thomas can make.
Yeah!
Let's do it. So I'm packing for my trip, and there's formal nights on this cruise ship that we're going on, and I hate formal nights because I hate wearing a suit and tie, and none of them fit. I don't wear them anymore. I've put on 20 pounds over the last year of having small children and working on a game all the time. So I get my sport jacket out, and I put my sport jacket on over top of my t-shirt that I'm currently wearing, right? And I asked my wife, what do you think? And she looks at me and she says, you look like Eric Bachman from Silicon Valley. And he's a rather large gentleman and not necessarily the best looking on that show. And so I'm like, oh man, I better take this jacket off before you get frisky.
That's a compliment. He's easily the best character on that show.
He is. He totally stole that show, I think.
Yep.
I think it's the Eric Bachman show. But anyway.
Yeah, well, he's gone now.
Please don't ruin that for me.
Okay.
Thanks for ruining all that for me.
You're welcome.
I hate spoilers. Now I hate you, Nick.
Hey, this is
This update is not going to go well. Okay, so shall we talk about managing our peoples, our minions?
Let's do that.
Yeah, since I can't keep you in line, everybody's going to think, oh, this isn't going to work at all.
Hey, it's towards the end of the week, Thomas. I get a little cantankerous. What can I say?
Nick's getting punchy, everybody. Watch out.
Got your sweet blue arrow.
Okay, I got my giant blue arrow. We're good to go. Okay, so if you watched the last update where we talked about your wealth, this is the screen that I call management, where you manage all of your wealth, things that you're in charge of. So over here on this side, we have the land that you can earn through quests, through basically as reward for quests, or maybe there's other ways of buying land or earning it some way. But anyway, you get land, and it's super special. You're not going to end up with hundreds of blocks of land. You're going to end up with maybe dozens. So on this screen, you can see this is your land, say fields, and these are the workers that you have assigned to your fields. And we have grouped them by the type of worker. So these are basically symbols that Roger's going to create better versions of. I just used little bathroom men. So that you knew that they were men. And I guess I could have put some skirts in there for diversity, but I didn't. Oh well. Roger will come up with something generic and appropriate. So anyways, this shows that we have 4 workers and 2 slaves and 2 constructs working in here. And this tells us that we have 8 out of 10 fields that are currently being worked, right? So if you count these up, that's 8. And we have a total of 10 fields that we own, and 8 of them are being worked. And at the end of the, let's call it the harvest of that particular type of land, we will receive 48 grain. Okay, so how long do you know the harvest is? Well, that's the little bar down here is. And so the idea is that you plant in the spring and you harvest in the fall. So that's roughly a 6-month period. And so these 8 people working it over the 6-month period, this little bar fills up over time as you're going off and adventuring and doing things and stuff. And then it gets to the end, and then bam, you get 48 grain. So your mage tower better be able to hold it all, right? Right, Nick?
Yeah, you got to fill up those, what are they called? Fill holes.
Storage rooms.
Storage, thank you.
In Portland, do you call that little tiny room with doors off of your bedroom, do you call that a fill hole?
That's exactly what we call it. I don't know what they call it up there in Canada.
We call them closets, but that's because we're Canadian. Okay, so anyways, by having different kinds of land that have different... I lost my giant blue arrow, come on. Oh, there we go. By having different kinds of harvest times, that gives reason in order to allocate your workers to, and I use the term workers generally to mean workers, slaves, constructs, to assign your workers to different things. And if they're compatible in terms of, like, let's say there's something to do in the winter with some type of land, and you can pull your people off the fields because it's not doing anything in the wintertime, and then throw them on to something else, and then you can move them back. So there's a little bit of min-maxing that you can do in this. So you can manage your people well and get more for it. So there's different kinds of time frames, right? So here's a pasture. So we're just showing, like, it's a 30-day cycle on when you get the result of the pasture, and it's currently not being worked. That's why it's kind of grayed out. Then forest. We created a bit of a slot machine, so you never know exactly what you're going to get from forest. And so that's why over here we say you're going to get, at the end of this time period, you're either going to get 7 wood, 3 herbs, or 99 gold. Because gold is buried in the trees.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I come from Canada, where we have the maple tree, and if you tap that sucker, it's like liquid gold coming out of there. You could sell maple syrup for $13 a liter, and gasoline's only $1.
Nice.
Liquid gold. No, it's supposed to represent, like, hunting or, furs or something like that, right? And then down here, it's showing these are your for sure things that you're going to get. So we're showing up here, these are the randomized things, these are the for sure things. And I'll explain in a second why this is showing here. Okay, so different kinds of land, you allocate your people as you desire, and that is how the land goes. So it's a big scrollable list. We can have as many land types as we want. And so you start the game, you won't have any land, and you earn it through the nobility bestowing land upon you. Does that make sense, Nick?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not to you, but to the people out there. Is there something I missed?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, next we have the apprentices, and I will explain them last. So, moving right along to workers. We have our workers, we have the little people heads, and we showed you how you can view an NPC in the last update. So it shows their name, and it shows you what they look like. You can kind of judge their age or whatever. If you click on it, then bam, it'll bring you to the NPC view, and then you can see everything related to that person. You can interact with them. So if you want to take one of your workers out for a bite to eat, you can. Then underneath them, there's no bar. But for the slaves, there is a bar, and that is a loyalty bar. And so we're going to have some kind of icon or outline or something that identifies a slave versus a worker. And so these are people that you have bought or captured. They're humanoids, like these goblins here, that you have bought or captured out in the world. And so this gives you an interesting thing to do with capturing people and putting them into your prisons. These are the prisoners down here. So you grab somebody in the world, you put them in a net, or you cast Hold Person on them or something like that. We haven't created that spell yet, but something like that. And now they're frozen, and you have them, and you bring them back, and you put them in your prison. So are they going to do what you say? No, they're not. So you need to keep them in prison for a while and break their will, and there might be certain actions you can do in order to expedite breaking their will. So while they're in prison, this little loyalty bar is going to go up like that. You like that sound effect?
It's beautiful, yeah. We should record it.
Oh, we're recording right now, Nick. I just have to go in and grab the MP3, and bam, we got that sound effect. James doesn't have to do anything. So this little thing's going to fill up. Okay, and so when it gets all full, you see this goblin, broken. Okay, so now that he's broken, now he's usable. Now you can sell him. Okay, so what a slave trader goes to buy a prisoner, basically is a slave at that point. If they're broken, they're worth something. If they're not broken, they're really not worth anything. So if you're just going to kidnap people and sell them directly to the slave trader, you're only going to get like 5 gold pieces for that. But if you take the time to break them in your prison, and now they will actually obey people, then you can get good money for them. You will also see that we have some creatures, right? Goblins, undead. I put the undead in here because you can't actually break an undead. He's immune to being in prison because he's already dead. What are you going to do, not feed him? Are you going to bore him to death? He's already dead. So there's no way to break the undead. Sorry. That requires special necromancy magic. That is not featured in this game. And then we have creatures. So can you assign wolves and spiders to work in your forest and in your mines?
No.
No, that's ridiculous, Nick. Why would you try to do that? So the breaking of wolves and spiders, you can turn those into your draft creatures, and you can make them pull along your little carts and carry your stuff from A to B. Isn't that cool?
That's pretty cool. I think it would freak people out having a spider attached to your trading.
We'll just say what every dog owner says. No, it's very, very friendly. No, the fact that he's jumping up and down on you, sniffing your balls, don't worry about it. He's very, very friendly. So creatures like these graduate into being draft creatures, or I guess, I don't know, you sell them off or eat them. I think you should be able to turn them into food.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah. Have some nice wolf barbecue and a little deep fried spider. Sorry, I've been watching a lot of deep frying shows on TV recently. Okay, so that's what happens with the creatures, and then the humanoids become slaves, which you see up here. Okay, so once they become a slave, so they start with this 100% loyalty, and they go up here and they become a slave. Then over time, that loyalty is going to decrease. And there could be random events. There could be things that you do. It could have something to do with your tower, buildings you build. Like, there's a variety of things. The kind of hirelings you have, which we'll talk about in a second. So that thing's going to go down, and you can do things in order to pick it back up. And one of those things is throw them back in prison. So the number of dungeon cells that you build into your mage tower is really important. Isn't that nice?
Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to build a giant dungeon.
You just want to play Prison Architect, but you're too cheap to buy it, so we have to build it for you.
Exactly.
That's right. Okay, so now we decided in this particular case with goblins, goblins are kind of a weenie race. So once you've broken them, we think they're just loyal forever. So that's kind of a unique perk to that particular race. So there's lots of races in the game, and each one will have their own unique things to them about being slaves and how they work the lands and stuff. So there is no loyalty thing under workers because you pay them, and because you pay them, they're loyal. End of story. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now let's go on to how you actually assign these workers to the field. Okay, so now this is kind of the interactive screen, just trying to show how the heck you work with these things. So the idea is that you click on the field or you click on the workers up here, whatever. Either way, it's going to bring up a list of the workers that are working the field. So this is, 1 field, 2 field, 3 field, 4 field, right? And then over here is the guy that you are currently, looking at, whatever, is highlight box, whatever. And so this little symbol is telling you that he is a slave, and it tells you their name and their race and their current loyalty level and what they're doing for you. So this guy is giving us 1 grain per month. And this goblin down here is giving us 1 grain per month. And this golem down here, he's giving us 1 grain per month. So that's nice. Then down here, we don't have anybody assigned to this particular plot. So we're going to click on that, and then that's how you get this down here to assign the worker. And then now it's showing you the people that are over here that are available for work that haven't already been assigned, okay? If I was to click the dude up here, it would just unassign him, and then you would get an assign worker option again. So down here, it's showing you these are the people, these are the various races, and what kind of special features they have. So this guy's human, so the humans are not special at all. I'm sorry, Nick, you're not special. I know, but neither am I, because I'm also human. But if you were a goblin, then you would find +1 herb in forests. So don't you wish you could change races?
I don't know. The goblins seem a little iffy.
Yeah, you'd rather be an orc? I understand. Okay, so this next one is a golem that was created by our example mage here. And so it's saying, hey, goblins, they're really strong, so... Sorry, golems are really strong, and +4 wood, +4 stone whenever they're working those kinds of fields, and +50% to forest cutting. So if you want to take a forest and cut it all down and get the lumber money right away and get some lumber, then if this guy's assigned, it's going to happen even faster. And then down here is just a regular human worker, and there's nothing special about them because they're humans. And then if you don't have anybody, then that's what this last option is. You can always just hire a local worker. And then those workers are pulled from the local population of the town, And so this is a way that you can give people jobs. If there's like a beggar in the town or something, you can hire them, and now they have a job, and then they can own a home, and they can continue on. That's how the simulator works. So the player interaction in simulator. Does that all make sense there, Nick?
I think it's pretty rad.
I think it's pretty rad. I like it. It's pretty abstract. I wanted to be more complicated and detailed. And Nick's like, "Are we making a role-playing game?" I was like, "Yeah, okay, fine." So I'm pretty pleased with this. I think this is it's going to work out well. Is it going to be exactly like this in the final game? Probably not. We'll probably tune it in various ways as we go along. But we're real happy with this as a starting point. Okay, so let's go back to our apprentices and explain what apprentices are. Hey, that actually worked. Okay, so let's... I said I was going to talk about apprentices, but I'm not. Because you can't control me, Nick. I'm my own person. Okay?
I can try.
5,000 miles away from you. You can't tell me what to do. So, I forgot to cover off hirelings, so I will talk about hirelings, then I'll get to the apprentices, because the apprentices are more complicated. Okay, so hirelings. So, everybody loves hirelings in a tabletop role-playing game. There's always lots of different rules, whether it's Pathfinder or D&D or whatever, and the changes by edition and stuff. But it's always fun to hire some people on and bring them along and kind of, I wouldn't really call it a party, but it's just people that are helping you out. Okay, so this is a list of hirelings. It's scrollable. You can have, I don't know, as many as you can get. And each one costs you some money. So they don't have a loyalty because you're paying them monthly. And so one of the ideas for this comes from the Total War series and how you have generals, and the generals kind of have their entourage or followers or something of the general. And so, one of the followers might be a mistress, or one of them is a cook, or one of them is a weapons master trainer or something like that. So that's kind of the idea. It just gives you kind of different buffs. So as I mentioned in the last video update, the real inspiration for this is Sir Robin's Minstrels and from Monty Python Search for the Holy Grail. So here we see you have Wilbur Mitchum. What kind of hireling is he? He's a minstrel. I don't know exactly where you hire these people from. Probably from the inns. That'd be a good place for it. You go to the inn.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hey, what kind of hirelings are there available in this town? Bam, here's a list of hirelings, and we can change that list every so many months or something like that. So I hired this minstrel. I pay him $500 a month, and he gives me he has a couple of abilities. The first is the retreat ballad. So we get plus 25% to fleeing combat. Because Sir Nick ran away, he ran away, he turned his tail and fled. Okay, so...
Bravely ran away.
That's true. It's always bravely that you ran away. So the next perk on this example is he has the vocabulary skill. So whenever you go to insult a character, you get plus 50% to your insulting ability. Anyways, they have various things. So early when you start the game and you don't have very many skills and your skills are very low, but you need to go and do something as part of a quest, like you need to track some goblin tracks in order to find where their lair is, and that's very hard to roll. That you can go and hire a tracker. He gives you like plus 50% to finding tracks. Bam, you can go and do that, and then you can let them go when you don't want them anymore, or you can keep them with you all the time. So there will be like really rare ones, and there'll be like very common ones that you can do. So those are hirelings. Okay, so now apprentices are like a super special kind of hireling. How do you get apprentices, Nick?
From the conclave, I'm guessing.
You haven't been paying attention to the design meetings. That's what I can
tell. Am I wrong?
Well, you're not wrong. Okay, so in Dragonlance, Raistlin had an apprentice, Dalamar, that was kind of assigned to him from the Conclave of Wizards, and it was a very prestigious role to take, to work with one of the greatest mages of all time. So he really wanted it, and there were like other people competing in order to do that. And so from that kind of seed, I took the idea that, as you increase your fame in the world, there are more and more mages that want to be your students. So think of it as kind of like a PhD program. Like you're like a professor, and people really want to study under you because you have amazing ideas, and so they want to come and learn from you. And so you could take on these apprentices. So once the apprentice joins you, so the number of apprentices you can have is limited by the number of bedrooms that you have in your mage tower, as well as your fame level and your standing within the conclave. So if you totally ignore the conclave, maybe you only can have 1 apprentice. But if you work your way up the ranks of the conclave, then you can have 3 or 5 or 12 or whatever. So apprentices do a lot of things for you. The first thing is they have a loyalty, and their loyalty is based on a couple of things: how you treat them, as well as they have goals. So they are NPCs that are passion driven. They have goals in life. So for instance, maybe they want to be the best ice mage of all time, and you are not teaching them much about ice magic, and then therefore their loyalty will drop and then they will leave. And I think that makes a lot of sense, and it's pretty realistic, and it's really simple. And there could be other things that are going that affect loyalty. But the major thing is that if you're going to have an apprentice, they're there for what? They're there to learn from you. So you need to continually teach them, and that takes some of your time, and you have to have a teaching room built into your mage tower. So we released the mage tower feature like fall of last year, but we didn't give you any of these cool rooms. That's because there's nothing to do with them. Like, we give you a teaching room, but you don't have any apprentices, so what's the point, right? So now that we're getting this stuff in, all those rooms are going to start appearing within the mage tower. Okay, so then the next thing is, I lost my giant cursor. Oh. You know, your experience of this software is, wow, it sure is buggy. But it's not, actually. This is the only time I've ever had the problem with it.
It's probably just the recording software integration.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Okay, so apprentices are special in that you can assign them tasks. Tedious tasks that you don't want to do. So you want to make passive income, or you want to craft potions. There's a whole list of things. You can send them out to spy on people, to assassinate them, to send messages on your behalf. There's even like random events that happen. So let's say you're going down the road and an arrow comes flying towards you. Do you quickly cast a spell? Do you try to dodge out of the way using your athletics skill? Or if you have an apprentice with you, you have like a blue option, like an FTL, that's like push the apprentice in front of you, right? So that's a really crude example of how having an apprentice could change things, or they could substitute in for you. And so they're kind of like little AIs that you can boss around within the game. So I think that's pretty neat. Nick doesn't care. Okay, and then the last thing is we have a very special kind of apprentice, and that is the protege. So before you can have a protege, you have to have a certain number of apprentices. So maybe you have to have 5 apprentices, and that opens up the protege option. So a protege is kind of like your right-hand man or right-hand woman, the one that's going to continue on after you if you die, or the one that's going to use secret bad magic in order to bring you back to life in case you die.
Sweet.
So you better make sure that you keep them really loyal. Otherwise, you die, and then they roll against their loyalty, and it fails, and they're like, they don't bring you back. And so your game is over.
I'm taking all your stuff.
That's right. Thanks for the stuff. See ya. So there we go. Okay. So we clicked on one of the apprentices, and then we're going to get this little screen showing you more details about the apprentice. So they're a special kind of NPC. You still have all the regular NPC options of killing them, going hunting with them, talking with them, all that stuff. But since they're apprentice, they have special stuff. So you'll see that they have a wage and the current task. You can assign them to research for you. That's very much like a PhD program where all the minions do all the research, and then you take all the credit. Isn't that great?
That sounds fabulous.
Sometimes it's just too close to real life. This shows you what their abilities are in the various spell schools. Over here are their personal traits. So each apprentice has X number of traits that define certain things for them. So that's what makes one versus another different, right? So this one's Pyromaniac. So they have plus 25% to fire research. So you would want to assign them to researching fire spells because they're going to give you more of a bonus towards that. But they're also lazy. So if you were to assign them to crafting, the crafting would actually go slower. Okay, so that's what these personal traits are. And then we have special protege traits. So if you promote this apprentice to being your protege, your main person who's in charge of everything, then you get these bonuses. And the Pyromaniac one gives you plus 10% to fire damage everywhere all the time, even if they're not with you. But this person also has a weakness, which is egotistical. So while they're a protege, you get minus 5% loyalty to all the other apprentices. So every one of your apprentices is going to be different, and you decide which one you think is the best mixture for the way that you're going to play, the one that you would like. And then you have various options here, like come travel with me, talk, which is to break into the normal NPC talking thing, promote them or demote them. If you demote them from protege, then their loyalty was going to take a big hit. And then finally you can dismiss them and get rid of them because you don't want to pay them anymore. Now, you have a commitment to these apprentices. They or their families paid you money in order to take them on as an apprentice, but then you're providing room and board and all these other things, so it actually costs you money in the long term. So you have to have them for X period of time. There's actually nowhere on the screen that shows you like how much time you need to have them have, but that's the idea, is that you have them for X amount of time. So if you dismiss them during the time that they should be under your tutelage, then they get really pissed at you, and you may create an enemy, and then that enemy can go and do things against you or rob you or various other things. But if they've been with you for the amount of time, the minimum amount of time, then you can get rid of them just by graduating them, and off they go, and they're happy, and there's someone else that exists in the world, and maybe you run into them as you play the game. So is the rundown of apprentices, hirelings, slaves, workers, prisoners, and the last thing I didn't cover was constructs. So constructs are things that you can make with your magic, and as I mentioned in the previous update, that you can make like an iron golem or a flesh golem or stone golem or whatever it is that you want to make them, and they have different abilities based on what you make. You take up a bunch of your magical power. And you see this last one? You see what his name is?
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah. So constructs are 100% loyal, just like Nick.
Yay.
And they work 24/7 for you, just like Nick. And they're also you create them out of nothing, just like I did
just
with
like
Nick.
me.
Yep.
That's right.
Nick didn't exist till I started working on the game.
That's true.
Yep. It's a false background behind there. Anyway, so these are the constructs that you create, and then you can click on them and interact with them to destroy them or assign them to different tasks within your mage tower or that kind of thing. So those are constructs. So this has been a slightly brief overview, kind of a medium length overview of the management of your minions. So that's what we have for this week, everybody, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.